The late afternoon sun poured golden light over the quiet streets of Willowbrook, a small American town where everyone knew each other's birthdays, favorite coffee orders, and old secrets. In a cozy corner apartment above the corner bakery, Mia stood by the window, staring out at the gentle sway of the maple trees lining the street. She had returned to Willowbrook after 5 long years in the city, a mixture of excitement and nervousness stirring in her chest. Today wasn't just any day, it was her birthday, though she had no idea what awaited her. Mia had changed in the years she'd been away. She was sharper, more cautious, and sometimes a little too self-reliant. But beneath her composed exterior, there was a longing for the warmth of the people she had once called her closest friends. Friends who had laughed with her, fought with her, and, in the quietest moments, understood the parts of her she rarely showed. Meanwhile, across town, the group of friends Mia had left behind was bustling with energy and whispers. Emma, the unofficial leader of the group, bounced from room to room in her small apartment, checking the decorations one last time. "Make sure the balloons don't float away this time," she muttered, tugging at the strings with precise fingers. Jake leaned against the counter, arms crossed, a half-smile on his lips, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. "You really think she'll like it?" he asked quietly. Emma shot him a glance that mixed exasperation with determination. "She's been through too much alone. She deserves this. No matter what." Lily, the quietest of the group, carefully arranged the cake on a low table, making sure every candle was aligned just right. She paused, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face, and whispered to herself, "I hope she remembers us the way we remember her." Tom, ever the joker, was stationed by the door, testing the playlist and adjusting the speakers with exaggerated concentration. But even his humor couldn't mask the tension beneath the surface. Years of misunderstandings, silent grudges, and unsaid words lingered like shadows in the corners of the room. Back in her apartment, Mia shifted her gaze from the street to her reflection in the window. She adjusted the collar of her shirt and took a deep breath, trying to shake off the nervous flutter in her stomach. Today, she thought, was just a normal birthday. No surprises, no expectations. But somewhere deep down, she felt a pulse of anticipation she couldn't quite name. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Emma, "See you at 6. Don't be late." Mia smiled faintly, unaware that Emma meant more than just dinner plans. The other's texts followed shortly after, all casual, all masking the undercurrent of excitement and secrecy. Mia didn't suspect a thing. Outside, the autumn breeze rustled the leaves, carrying the faint scent of baked bread and cinnamon from the bakery below. The world seemed calm, peaceful, almost ordinary. Yet in the apartments and streets of Willowbrook, hearts were racing, minds replaying old conversations, old arguments, old regrets. In just a few hours, laughter and tears would collide, and the quiet streets would witness the beginning of a night Mia, and everyone else, would never forget. Emma checked her phone again, confirming everyone was on schedule. "Remember," she said, voice low but firm, "this isn't just a party. It's a chance. A chance to fix what we left broken." Jake nodded, though his jaw was tight. He knew some wounds ran deeper than balloons or candles could heal. But tonight, for Mia, for all of them, they would try. Mia, oblivious to the orchestrated chaos of excitement waiting for her, tied her sneakers and grabbed her coat. She stepped out into the golden light of the street, the crisp air brushing her face. She took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of her hometown under her feet, feeling memories tug at her heart. Somewhere down the block, her friends were waiting, hearts pounding with anticipation, hands trembling with both hope and fear. And so, as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink, Mia walked toward a night that would change everything, a night where laughter, secrets, and courage would collide in ways none of them could yet imagine. The apartment hummed with quiet urgency as Emma rounded up her friends in the living room. The lights were dim, the soft glow of fairy lights outlining the shelves, casting playful shadows on the walls. Every detail had to be perfect: balloons, streamers, the cake, and most importantly, the timing. Tonight wasn't just any birthday party, it was a carefully orchestrated reunion, a chance to mend what years of distance had frayed. Jake spread out a blueprint of the apartment on the coffee table. "So, as she comes through the door," he said, pointing with a pen, and the whole room lights up. Music, lights, everyone jumps out. Boom, surprise. His grin was wide, but a flicker of doubt crossed his eyes. He remembered how Mia had disappeared into the city 5 years ago, how she'd slipped out without a word, leaving a void that had never quite healed. Could this surprise bridge that gap, or would it reopen old wounds? Lily, who had always been the sensitive heart of the group, carefully placed framed photos of the 4 friends on a side table. Each one captured a moment frozen in laughter: last summer's beach trip, the impromptu snowball fight, a coffee shop selfie with messy hair and wide smiles. "She'll remember," Lily said softly, almost to herself. "She has to." Tom, the practical one, checked the playlist again, muttering under his breath. "No sappy songs at first. We need the shock, the energy. Then we hit her with the slow stuff. The memories. The emotional punch." He tapped his phone, scrolling through a list of tracks they all had loved back in high school. Music had always been their secret language, the bridge between the spoken and the unsaid. Emma leaned back, folding her arms, eyes scanning her friends' faces. "This isn't just about decorations or cake," she said firmly. "It's about making her feel seen. About showing her she's still part of this, us. We have to be honest tonight. Not everything. But enough." Jake groaned lightly. "Honest? Some things might not be ready for honesty. Remember the argument before she left? Remember how we never said sorry for that?" His words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of unspoken tension. The room fell silent for a beat, each of them recalling the last bitter words before Mia disappeared into the city, leaving questions dangling, friendships fractured. Lily broke the silence. "We don't get another chance like this. We can't let it slip away." Her voice was small but firm, carrying a conviction that seemed to ripple through the room. Emma nodded, meeting Lily's gaze. "Exactly," Emma said. "Tonight is not just about her birthday. It's about courage. Ours and hers. We can't control her reaction, but we can control our own hearts. If we want her back, really back, we have to be ready to face the truth, our mistakes, our regrets, everything we left unsaid." The friends spent the next hour running through their plan like soldiers rehearsing a battle. Every moment was timed: Mia's arrival, the lights flicking on, the music, the shout of surprise. Emma assigned each friend a role. Lily would guide Mia into the room, subtly controlling the timing of the big reveal. Jake and Tom would handle the decorations and music cues, while Emma herself would stand at the center, waiting to make the first move toward reconciliation if things went south. As they worked, little tensions bubbled to the surface: arguments over balloon colors, disagreements on the playlist, reminders of past slights that had never truly healed. But each argument ended with laughter, the friction smoothing out, leaving only determination. They were preparing for a celebration, yes, but also for a reckoning. Finally, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, painting the sky in streaks of magenta and gold, the apartment was transformed. Balloons hovered gently at the ceiling, fairy lights twinkled like stars, and the cake sat proudly in the center, surrounded by the carefully placed photos. Everything was ready. Emma surveyed the room one last time. "No turning back now," she whispered. She looked at her friends, Lily, Tom, Jake, and saw reflected in their eyes the same mixture of fear and hope she felt herself. They were about to step into a night that could change everything. Outside, the street was calm. The quiet hum of Willowbrook wrapped around the apartment like a soft blanket. Mia was still walking home, unaware of the orchestrated surprise awaiting her. She passed the familiar bakery, the scent of cinnamon drifting through the air, and smiled faintly at the memories it stirred. Somewhere ahead, her friends were ready, hearts pounding, holding their breath for the moment she would cross the threshold. And in that quiet, golden hour, as the world seemed poised on the edge of something extraordinary, none of them could know exactly what would unfold. Laughter, tears, old secrets, and confessions were waiting, ready to crash into the room like a storm. Tonight, the birthday celebration would become more than a party. It would become a test of courage, a chance to face the past, and maybe, just maybe, a path to healing. The door clicked softly, a familiar sound that made Emma's heart leap. Outside, the night was cool, the streetlights casting long shadows over the pavement. Everyone froze, holding their breath. The next few seconds would decide everything, whether tonight became a memory of joy or a night of awkward silences and unspoken regrets. Lily stepped forward, her hand gently resting on the doorknob. "She's here," she whispered, eyes wide with anticipation. Emma nodded, giving her a reassuring squeeze on the shoulder. The door swung open. Mia stepped inside, her coat still dusted with the evening breeze, hair slightly mushed, eyes scanning the room for a clue, a sign, a hint that something was different. She hadn't expected this, she never did, but she froze at the sight. Surprise! The lights flicked on, illuminating the apartment in a burst of color and energy. Balloons floated above, fairy lights twinkled like stars, and laughter erupted from the friends who had been hiding in every corner. For a moment, Mia's eyes glistened, mouth opening, then closing as the shock washed over her. "Happy birthday, Mia." Emma's voice rang clear and steady, trying to mask the nervous tremor that threatened to escape. She stepped forward, arms outstretched, offering the warmth and sincerity that words alone could never convey. Mia blinked, processing the scene. I don't," her voice faltered, caught somewhere between disbelief and emotion. She looked at each friend in turn, Lily's bright, expectant eyes, Jake's awkward grin, Tom's careful smile. And then Emma, who had always been the anchor, the one person who had somehow kept the group tethered through years of distance. For a heartbeat, the room held its breath. Then laughter bubbled from Mia's lips, soft and tentative at first, then louder, mingling with tears she didn't try to hide. She had not expected this, had not allowed herself to imagine that they would remember, that they would care enough to plan this. As the initial shock faded, the air shifted. The tightness in their chests, the anticipation, the anxiety, the old regrets, began to unravel. They circled around Mia, hugs offered, tears shared, and for a brief moment, it felt like the years of separation melted away. But underneath the joy, the tension simmered. Jake cleared his throat, the words he had held back for 5 years threatening to spill out. "Mia, there's something we need to talk about." His tone was careful, not confrontational, but firm. Mia paused, wiping at her cheeks. "Okay. I guess we do." Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of fear, the fear of reopening wounds she had tried to bury. Tom stepped closer, hesitating. "We never really handled things before you left. There are things that were said, things left unsaid. Tonight might be messy, but..." He stopped, realizing that honesty, raw and unfiltered, was the only way forward. Emma nodded, feeling the weight of her own words. "It's not just about catching up. It's about facing the truth. About finally saying what we need to say." Her gaze met Mia's, unwavering, sincere. "If we want to move forward, we have to do it now. All of it. No hiding." The room went quiet again, the only sound the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant city beyond the windows. Mia's eyes darted around, taking in the decorations, the cake, the framed memories of their shared past. She took a deep breath, exhaling slowly, gathering courage she hadn't realized she still carried. I know I left, she said finally, voice trembling. I thought I was doing what I needed for myself, but I didn't think about how it would hurt you. All of you. And I'm sorry. Truly. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, and she stepped closer, her voice breaking just slightly. We've all hurt each other. But we're still here. That means something. Then Lily, standing shyly at the edge of the group, held out a small, hand-painted card. I made this for you, she said softly. I wanted you to know. I didn't forget. Mia knelt down, taking the card gently in her hands. The colors were bright, imperfect, but filled with meaning. And in that small gesture, a bridge formed, fragile, trembling, but real. The laughter returned, softer this time, mingling with quiet confessions and the clink of glasses as the friends circled around the cake. Yet beneath the celebration, undercurrents of tension lingered, secrets waiting for the right moment, truths that would emerge one by one. Tonight wasn't just a birthday party. It was the beginning of reckoning, a night where courage and honesty would be tested. Mia's presence had reignited the bonds and the fissures alike, and no one could predict where the revelations would lead. But for the first time in years, the room felt alive, charged with the possibility of healing. And in the midst of balloons and fairy lights, of music and laughter, the first whispers of truth began to surface. The initial laughter faded into a soft hum, leaving space for the unspoken weight that hovered over the room. Mia set the hand-painted card on the table and looked around at her friends. Her eyes lingered on Jake, who shifted nervously from foot to foot, the corners of his mouth tightening as though holding back a storm. Okay, Jake began, voice low but deliberate. I need to say something I should have said a long time ago. He paused, glancing at each friend, then at Mia. When you left, Mia, I blamed you. I thought you abandoned all of us. And I said some things about you behind your back. Things I shouldn't have. Mia's breath hitched. Jake, she whispered, unsure if she wanted to hear the rest. No, I need to finish, Jake insisted, running a hand through his hair. I know we all did things we regret. But I said things that weren't true. That painted you as someone you're not. His voice cracked, and he dropped into the nearest chair, head in his hands. I was angry, hurt, and selfish. And I'm sorry. I really am. The room was silent. Even Lily, who had been quietly observing, seemed to understand the gravity of the moment. She clutched Emma's hand, a small anchor in a storm that was just beginning to rise. Mia knelt beside Jake, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Thank you for saying it, she said softly, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. That means more than you know. Then Tom cleared his throat, leaning against the wall, eyes flicking between Mia and Jake. If we're being honest, he said, his voice measured but firm, I need to own my part too. When you left, Mia, I told myself I understood, that you had your reasons. But inside, I felt betrayed. And when I felt betrayed, I pushed people away. I avoided the group. I said things to Emma, to Lily, things that, they weren't fair to anyone. Emma's chest tightened, the familiar ache of old wounds resurfacing. Tom, she began, but he held up a hand, shaking his head. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just telling the truth. It's time we stop pretending everything's okay when it isn't. Mia's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. This is hard, she said, voice trembling. I wanted to come back into your lives, but I didn't know if I could face the truth. All of it. And yet, here we are. Lily, sensing the tension, stepped forward. I don't understand all the grown-up stuff, she said, small voice quivering. But I know. I want us to be friends again. All of us. Her words, innocent but powerful, seemed to cut through the thick atmosphere. Everyone paused, absorbing the simplicity of a child's honesty. In that moment, the room became both lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because Lily reminded them why they were here, heavier because it forced them to confront how much damage had been done in silence. Mia took a deep breath, glancing at Emma. "We all hurt each other," she admitted. "Maybe more than we even realize. But tonight I want to start making it right. Even if it's messy, even if it hurts." Emma nodded, feeling tears prick the corners of her eyes. "Messy is okay," she said. "If we're honest, if we're brave, maybe we can finally heal. Not everything will be fixed tonight. But it's a start." Then a sudden noise startled everyone, a loud crash from the kitchen. Plates clattered to the floor, scattering remnants of the birthday snacks. The unexpected disruption broke the tension for a heartbeat, and everyone turned, startled, before bursting into nervous laughter. Laughter turned into smiles, but the undercurrent remained. Secrets were still waiting to surface, grudges still simmered, and old misunderstandings had yet to be fully aired. Yet for the first time that evening, they felt a fragile unity forming, like cracks in a dam where the water was finally seeping through, releasing the pressure instead of letting it build. Mia glanced at each friend in turn, her heart swelling with a mixture of hope and fear. "I don't know what's next," she admitted quietly, "but I want to face it with you. All of it. The good, the bad, everything we've ignored for years." The group nodded, each silently acknowledging that tonight was a turning point. A birthday, yes, but also a reckoning. The night was far from over, and the confessions had only begun. And as the lights flickered softly overhead, casting shadows on faces both anxious and relieved, they realized that the birthday surprise had become something far bigger, a night that might change the course of all their lives. The laughter from the kitchen had barely faded when a tension thicker than the summer heat settled over the room. Emma, still kneeling to pick up shards of broken glass, hesitated with a small paper tucked under a plate. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it, revealing a faded Polaroid that had slipped behind the cabinet years ago. "Where did this come from?" Mia asked, peering over her shoulder. Her curiosity, tinged with a nervous edge, made her voice barely audible. Emma's lips pressed into a thin line. I don't know. I think it's been here the whole time." The photo showed a younger version of the group, laughing, carefree, frozen in a moment none of them had revisited in years. Yet in the corner, barely noticeable, was something else, a folded note, half hidden behind Lily in the picture. Mia reached for it cautiously. "It's addressed to me." Her brow furrowed, and she carefully unfolded the brittle paper. The handwriting was unmistakable, belonging to someone she hadn't spoken to in over 5 years, Lucas, her first love, the one who'd left town abruptly the summer she disappeared. The note read, "I know you're leaving soon. I never wanted to hurt you, but you need to know, not everyone here is who they pretend to be. Be careful, Mia. Some people hide more than you think." Silence hung heavy in the air. The room, moments ago filled with tentative laughter and tentative confessions, suddenly felt small and suffocating. Jake, standing by the doorway, ran a hand through his hair and said quietly, "Lucas, he never meant for this to resurface." But he was right about one thing. Mia looked up, eyes wide. "What do you mean?" Jake swallowed hard. "There are things about us, things we didn't talk about. People changed. Some lied. Some hid the truth because they didn't think it mattered. But it does. All of it matters." Emma's voice wavered as she added, "Like the night Lily got sick, remember? Some of us didn't tell Mia what really happened. We thought we were protecting her. But maybe we were protecting ourselves more." Mia's stomach sank. Her gaze darted around the room, catching every pair of eyes, some brimming with guilt, some with fear, some with unspoken apologies. The revelation was like a candle being snuffed out, sudden, sharp, leaving only shadows in its place. "Why didn't anyone ever tell me?" Mia whispered. The question wasn't accusatory, but it hung in the air, heavy and unavoidable. Tom stepped forward, voice firm yet hesitant. "Because we were scared. Scared of losing you again. Scared of what you'd think. We didn't trust ourselves to say it right." And now, he trailed off, shaking his head. A sharp intake of breath interrupted him. Lily had wandered closer, drawn by the serious tone, her small face lifted toward them. "Are you all fighting?" she asked, voice trembling. "No, baby," Mia said quickly, crouching to meet her eyes. "We're figuring out some things. Grown-up things. Things we should have said a long time ago." But even as she spoke, the tension was palpable. Emma moved closer to Mia, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's better now," she said softly. "We're being honest. For the first time in years." Just then, a ringtone cut through the quiet. Mia's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, and her eyes widened. A message from an unknown number: "I know you're back. Meet me in the backyard if you want the truth." The room froze. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Jake glanced at Mia, face pale. This isn't a joke, right?" Mia shook her head slowly, fear mingling with determination. "No. I think someone's ready to finally tell everything." Emma exhaled sharply. "Everything?" "Yes," Mia said, standing tall, fists clenched at her sides. "Everything." The group followed her to the sliding glass doors that led to the backyard. The summer night was heavy with the scent of cut grass and jasmine, the quiet only broken by distant city sounds. In the shadows, a figure stepped forward, Lucas. Older, more hardened by life, but the same eyes that once held her heart. "I didn't think I'd see you again," Mia said, voice barely above a whisper. Lucas shook his head. "Neither did I. But some truths, they can't stay buried forever. And tonight, everything comes out." The friends exchanged uneasy glances. What started as a birthday celebration had transformed into a reckoning. The secrets, carefully tucked away for years, were finally surfacing. And in the quiet darkness of the backyard, the first domino of their past was about to fall. The backyard was bathed in the soft glow of string lights, but the warmth of the evening did nothing to ease the chill creeping through the group. Lucas stepped closer, his eyes scanning each familiar face. "I didn't come here to play games," he said, voice steady. "I came to tell the truth, about everything." Mia took a deep breath, trying to steady the racing of her heart. "Then start," she said softly, her voice trembling. Lucas glanced at Emma first. "Remember the night at the lake," he began. The mention of the lake made the group flinch. It was a memory they had avoided revisiting for years. The fire started because someone didn't check the grill properly. Someone panicked and ran instead of calling for help. Emma's eyes widened, guilt flooding her expression. "It was me," she admitted, voice barely audible. "I panicked. I thought if I ran, no one would get hurt. I didn't mean for anything to happen. She stopped, tears threatening to spill. Mia's hand went to her mouth. "You never told me," she whispered, pain lacing her words. "I trusted you." Emma shook her head. "I was scared, Mia. Scared you'd hate me. Scared you'd leave. I thought I was protecting you, but I was only protecting myself." Jake, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "And I kept my own secrets too," he said, voice low and heavy. "I knew Emma made a mistake, but I lied when people asked. I wanted to keep the group together. I didn't think honesty could survive back then. Mia's eyes filled with tears. So all this time, all the distance, all the arguments, it could have been avoided if we had just talked. Maybe, Jake admitted, shoulders sagging. But we were kids. We didn't know how to deal with fear, or guilt, or disappointment. We were trying to survive in our own ways. The backyard was silent except for the soft hum of cicadas. Lily tugged at Mia's skirt again, her small eyes wide and unsure. Mia bent down, brushing a stray strand of hair from her daughter's face. "It's okay, baby," she whispered. "Everything's okay now." Lucas turned his gaze to Mia, his expression earnest. "And I have something else to confess," he said. "I left town that summer because I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. I thought leaving would solve my problems. But I realized, the real problem was me, and running never fixes anything." Mia swallowed hard, her chest tight. "So all those years, you just disappeared?" "Yes," Lucas said, voice breaking slightly. "I should have stayed. I should have faced everything. And I'm sorry for the pain I caused. Not just to you, but to all of us." Emma reached out, placing a hand on Lucas's arm. "We're all guilty of hiding something," she admitted. "We were scared, selfish, immature. But maybe, tonight, we finally have a chance to fix it. To be honest. Really honest." Jake nodded. "It's like pulling a splinter," he said. "It hurts at first, but the wound can finally start to heal." Mia looked around at the friends she had grown up with, the ones who had shared laughter, secrets, and heartbreak, and realized that the fear of confrontation had kept them trapped in a web of misunderstanding. Now, facing the truth, no matter how painful, offered a strange sense of liberation. "I don't want to fight anymore," Mia said, voice firm. "I don't want to carry anger for mistakes made years ago. I just want the truth. That's all I've ever wanted." The group nodded in silent agreement, and one by one, confessions began to tumble out, raw and unfiltered. Small betrayals, old crushes, jealousies, and regrets, the emotional floodgates opened wide. Screams, tears, and laughter mingled in the warm night air, the intensity of the release almost physical. Lily watched, wide-eyed, unsure how to process the torrent of emotion surrounding her. Mia knelt beside her daughter, holding her close. "Sometimes," she whispered, "the truth is messy, loud, and scary. But it's also the only way to make things right." Lucas finally stepped back, his chest rising and falling with relief. "We can't change the past," he said, voice calm but firm. "But we can decide how we move forward. And I think, maybe we're ready to try." The friends exchanged looks, hesitant, cautious, yet hopeful. The night had turned from celebration to confrontation, from laughter to tears, from avoidance to reckoning. And in that backyard, under the glow of string lights and the watchful eyes of a summer sky, they began to confront the hardest truth of all, that honesty, no matter how painful, was the only path to healing. The laughter and chatter of earlier in the evening had faded completely. What remained in the backyard was a tense, fragile quiet, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. Mia felt the weight of the unspoken truth pressing against her chest like a heavy stone. She took a deep breath and turned to the group. "There's one more thing we need to face," she said, her voice trembling but determined. Everyone's eyes turned toward her. Even Lily, perched on the edge of a wooden bench, sensed the shift in energy. "It's about Alex," Mia continued. "And the night before the accident." A collective shiver ran through the friends. Alex had been the glue that held them together, the one whose absence had left an aching void. He wasn't here tonight, and yet, his shadow seemed to hang over every corner of the yard. Emma swallowed hard. "Mia, what do you mean?" Mia's gaze landed on Lucas. "I mean, we've been hiding the truth about what really happened that night. And we've been pretending it was just bad luck. But it wasn't luck, it was choices. All of us, in one way or another, made choices that night. Lucas's jaw tightened. I already confessed about leaving. What else is there? Mia's eyes flicked toward Jake. The fire at the lake. The lies we told about Emma. But also, your decision to keep Alex out of the plan. You thought you were protecting him, but you didn't give him a chance to speak, to defend himself. Jake's face paled. I thought it was for the best, he whispered. I didn't want anyone else to get hurt. I thought I was doing the right thing. But you weren't, Mia said sharply. Your silence put all of us in a position where we couldn't act honestly. And it cost Alex everything. It cost him trust, friendship, maybe even his life. Tears welled in Emma's eyes. We were all scared, she said. I know that doesn't excuse what I did, but we were just kids, trying to survive in a world we didn't understand. Lucas finally spoke, voice heavy with emotion. I've carried guilt for years. Not just for leaving, but for not standing up for Alex. I thought keeping quiet was safer, but it only made the wait worse. The backyard seemed smaller, the air thicker, as if the truth itself had filled every corner. Lily shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension between the adults. She looked at her mother, her eyes wide and questioning. Mia knelt beside her daughter, brushing a lock of hair from her forehead. It's going to be okay, Lily. Sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes people hide because they're scared. But tonight, we face it all. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the night. And what about the birthday surprise? Mark, Mia's cousin who had been quietly observing, stepped forward, his expression unreadable. You planned a party to celebrate, but what kind of celebration is this if all we do is dredge up old pain? Mia looked at him, determination blazing in her eyes. Because it's the only way to heal, Mark. You can't pretend nothing happened. We owe it to Alex, and to ourselves, to be honest. Mark exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Fine. But honesty is a two-way street. If someone's going to speak, everyone speaks. No holding back. And then it began. One by one, they told the stories they had buried deep, betrayals, jealousies, the lies told to protect themselves, the secrets kept to avoid confrontation. Screams, sobs, whispered apologies, raw emotion poured into the warm summer night. The backyard, once a place of celebration, had become a confessional. Lily clutched Mia's hand, feeling the surge of adult emotions but trusting her mother's calm presence. For Mia, it was like tearing open old wounds to let the infection drain out. Painful, messy, but liberating. Finally, silence fell again, heavier than before. The confessions had been made, the truths revealed, and the air seemed charged with possibility. Lucas stepped forward, his eyes glistening in the string-like glow. We can't undo the past, he said softly. But we can choose what we do next. We can choose courage, honesty, and maybe, forgiveness. Emma nodded, tears streaming freely. We've been hiding for too long, she whispered. Tonight, we stop hiding. Mia's gaze swept across the group. The party wasn't just for my birthday, she said gently. It was for all of us. A chance to face the truth, finally. To start over. And somewhere in the distance, a faint sound of laughter, mingled with tears, hinted at the first fragile threads of reconciliation. The backyard was quiet now, but the air was still thick with the echoes of confessions and long-held grudges. Mia stood in the center, letting the words of everyone sink in. The string lights above cast a warm, golden glow, softening the sharp edges of the night's emotions. For the first time in years, the friends felt something they hadn't dared to feel before, a cautious, trembling hope. Lucas broke the silence. I know it won't fix everything, he said, voice low but steady. But I want to try. I want to be honest from now on. No more secrets, no more pretending. Emma reached out and squeezed his hand. I want that too, she whispered. Her eyes met Mia's, and for a moment, the weight of past mistakes seemed a little lighter. We've all hurt each other. But maybe we can stop hurting ourselves, too. Jake, who had been standing slightly apart, took a hesitant step forward. I don't expect forgiveness right away, he admitted. And I don't even know if I deserve it. But I want to make things right. His eyes flicked toward the empty space where Alex's chair would have been. The absence of their friend loomed over them, a reminder that some consequences couldn't be undone, but that didn't mean they couldn't grow from the pain. Mia knelt down beside Lily, who had been quietly watching the adults process their emotions. Do you understand what's happening, sweetie? Mia asked gently. Lily nodded, hugging her mother's waist tightly. People sometimes make mistakes, Mia explained softly. But what matters is when they try to do better. Outside, the night air felt lighter. The tension that had gripped the backyard all evening seemed to lift, replaced by the tentative beginnings of forgiveness and understanding. The friends moved closer together, forming a loose circle that felt fragile but real. There was no cheering, no dramatic gestures, just quiet acknowledgement that, somehow, they had survived the storm of their own making. Mark, who had been observing silently from the edge, finally spoke again. This is the start of something new, he said, voice calmer now. Not a clean slate, none of us get that, but a chance to be honest and rebuild. Slowly, but honestly. Mia nodded. Exactly. Tonight isn't about erasing the past. It's about facing it. And learning that courage to speak, to apologize, to forgive, courage is the real gift. Emma wiped her eyes and looked around. So, does this mean we can finally celebrate? She asked with a small, tentative smile. A few others laughed softly, the first real lightness in the night since the party began. Mia smiled back, reaching for the small cake that had been waiting untouched on the table. We've earned it, she said. Not for forgetting, not for pretending nothing happened, but for surviving the truth and choosing to keep going. As the candles were lit, Lily clapped her hands in delight. Her innocent joy brought a sense of peace to the adults around her. For a moment, the complicated emotions, the betrayals, and the regrets melted away into something simple and pure, love, friendship, and the fragile but beautiful bonds that tied them together. Lucas leaned down and whispered to Mia, "Thank you, for having the courage to bring us all together, even knowing how messy it could get." Mia shook her head slightly, a tear sliding down her cheek. "No, thank you. For being brave enough to face the truth. That's what makes tonight worth it." They sang happy birthday to Mia, not as a perfectionist party, but as a celebration of survival, honesty, and connection. Each voice carried both joy and relief, and even though the shadows of the past lingered, they no longer controlled the night. As the last candle flickered out, Mia held Lily close. The little girl rested her head on her mother's shoulder, sleepy but content, unaware of the full depth of the adult struggles around her. And in that moment, Mia understood the true meaning of the evening, not perfection, not forgetting, but the courage to face reality and the chance to rebuild what had been broken. By the time the guests began to leave, hugs and quiet words of reconciliation filled the yard. No one left with all their pain erased, but everyone left with a glimmer of hope, proof that honesty, courage, and connection could indeed heal even the deepest wounds. And as Mia closed the door behind the last friend, she whispered to herself, "This is how we begin again." The morning after the party arrived with a calm, soft light that seemed almost miraculous after the emotional storm of the night before. Sunlight filtered through the half-open blinds of Mia's apartment, painting golden stripes across the wooden floor. The air smelled faintly of cake and candles, a lingering trace of the celebration that had turned into confession and revelation. Mia sat at the small kitchen table, cradling a cup of coffee in both hands. She could hear Lily humming softly to herself as she drew at the counter, sketching flowers and stick figures with the kind of careless joy that only children seemed capable of. For the first time in weeks, Mia allowed herself to feel peace, quiet, unhurried, and real. Her phone buzzed. It was Lucas. Morning, his text read. I just wanted to say, thank you again. I know last night was messy, but I feel like we can actually be honest with each other now. And I want to try, really try. Mia smiled, typing back quickly. Good morning. I feel the same. Today feels like a new start. She hesitated for a moment, then added, meet me for lunch. Meanwhile, Jake lingered outside, unsure whether he should call or just leave a note. Finally, he decided on a message. I'm sorry. I want to do better. If you're ready, I'd like to talk. It was short, but it carried the weight of everything left unsaid the night before. At the park nearby, Emma had taken a quiet walk, trying to process her own emotions. She replayed the confessions, the tears, and the apologies in her mind, realizing that vulnerability had changed everything. The awkward tension, the buried resentment, it hadn't disappeared completely, but it had been acknowledged, and that was the first step toward healing. She checked her phone and smiled at a message from Mia, lunch today. We can talk. Back at the apartment, Mia knelt beside Lily, helping her put away her crayons. You know, she said softly, sometimes adults make mistakes, but that doesn't mean they stop caring. We just have to be brave enough to fix things. Lily looked up, her big brown eyes shining. Like the birthday party, she asked. Even when people argued, we were still together. Mia nodded, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's face. Exactly. We stayed together, even when it was hard. That's what makes it special. By mid-morning, the small group of friends began to reconnect. Lucas arrived first, with coffee in hand, his usual easy charm slightly softened by the gravity of recent events. Emma followed shortly, carrying a notebook full of doodles and ideas for new projects. Each step they took toward each other felt tentative but deliberate, as though they were relearning how to trust. When they finally sat down at the little cafe near the park, the atmosphere was different. There were no awkward silences, no veiled glances, just a willingness to be seen as they truly were. Lucas shared a funny story from work, and Emma laughed, the sound light and freeing. Jake arrived last, apologizing again, but this time with sincerity that couldn't be ignored. Slowly, the tension melted into conversation, connection, and even laughter. Lily joined them after school, skipping up with a small drawing in her hand. Look, she announced proudly. I drew all of us. She held up a picture of stick figures standing in a circle, smiling, with a bright sun above them. There was Mia, Lily, Lucas, Emma, and even a tiny stick figure labeled Jake in the corner. The friends smiled, touched by the innocence and truth in the drawing. Mia looked around at her friends, at the warmth in their eyes, and realized that the night of confessions hadn't broken them, it had reshaped them. You know, she said quietly, this is how we start again. Not pretending everything's perfect, but showing up anyway. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows over the park. Conversations flowed more easily, laughter became genuine, and the weight of yesterday's revelation settled into a quiet strength. For the first time in a long while, they were not just friends bound by history, they were a community willing to face the truth together, no matter how uncomfortable. As the afternoon faded into evening, Mia held Lily's hand, walking slowly back to the apartment. Today was a good day, she said. Lily beamed, clutching her mother's hand tightly. The best, she said, her voice full of certainty. And for the first time in months, Mia allowed herself to believe it too. The party, the arguments, the confessions, they were not the end of their story. They were the bridge to something new, something honest, something worth fighting for. In that quiet moment, with the sun dipping low and painting the world in shades of gold, Mia understood that new beginnings weren't loud or dramatic, they were steady, small, and built on courage. And tonight, as she tucked Lily into bed, she whispered a promise to herself: "We will keep going, together, no matter what comes next." The days following the party were quieter, slower, but they carried a sense of purpose that had been absent for far too long. The adrenaline of confessions and confrontations had faded, leaving behind raw, honest space for reflection. Mia woke up that morning with a heaviness in her chest but also a faint spark of hope. It was time to face the parts of herself, and her friends, that had been avoided for years. She started with Lucas. They met at a small, sunlit cafe, the kind with mismatched chairs and the aroma of freshly baked bread. He arrived before her, already scribbling notes in a journal. Mia hesitated at the doorway, taking a moment to breathe. But when he looked up and smiled, that easy, genuine smile, she felt a little of her tension ease. "Morning," he said softly, pushing a cup of coffee toward her. "Morning," she replied, sitting down. They didn't dive into small talk. Instead, Mia spoke first, her voice steady but quiet. "I've been thinking about last night. About all the things I avoided saying, and I want to make them right." Lucas nodded, eyes reflecting a seriousness she hadn't seen before. "Me too. I've been carrying guilt about a lot of things. Things I should have said, things I should have done differently. But I want to start being honest, with you, with myself." They spent the next hour untangling the web of misunderstandings and old wounds that had accumulated over time. Each confession was met with nods, sometimes silence, sometimes laughter at the absurdity of their miscommunication. By the time they left the cafe, there was a palpable sense of relief, a weight lifted from both shoulders. Meanwhile, Emma had her own quiet reckoning. She sat on a park bench, sketchbook in hand, reflecting on the arguments that had erupted during the party. For years, she had avoided confronting her resentment toward Jake, afraid that honesty would break their friendship. But after watching everyone else speak their truth, she realized avoidance had only deepened the divide. When Jake arrived, hesitant but determined, Emma took a deep breath. "We need to talk," she said. "About us, about what happened at the party, about all the things we never said." Jake nodded, his usual confident demeanor replaced by something vulnerable, raw. "I've been scared," he admitted. "Scared of losing you, scared of admitting my mistakes. But I can't change the past. I can only try to be better now." Emma smiled, small but sincere. "That's all I needed to hear." Together, they unpacked the grudges and miscommunications, layer by layer, until they could see each other clearly again, not as enemies or rivals, but as friends and allies. By the time the sun began to set, the tension that had hung over them for months was replaced by a quiet understanding, the kind that only comes after truly facing one's fears. Back at Mia's apartment, Lily was coloring quietly at the table. She glanced up as her mother entered, holding a small envelope. "Mom, is that for me?" she asked, curiosity bright in her eyes. Mia nodded. "It's a little gift," she said. Inside was a small scrapbook of the party, complete with photos, doodles, and snippets of the conversations that had taken place. "I wanted you to remember that even when things get messy, honesty and courage bring people closer," Mia explained. Lily hugged the scrapbook to her chest. "I like that," she said. "I want to be brave too." That evening, the friends gathered again, this time without the drama or tension. They cooked dinner together, shared stories of childhood mischief, and laughed until their sides hurt. For the first time in years, they felt connected in a way that was unshakable. Mia looked around at the group: Lucas, Emma, Jake, and even a shy new friend Lily had made at school, and realized that the party had not been just a celebration of a birthday. It had been a catalyst, a turning point that forced them all to confront the truths they had buried. And in confronting those truths, they had found a new sense of freedom. As the night drew to a close, Mia tucked Lily into bed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Remember, sweetie," she whispered, "being brave doesn't mean you're never scared. It means you face the scary things anyway." Lily nodded, eyes heavy with sleep. "I think I understand," she murmured. "I want to be brave like you, Mom." And in that quiet, gentle moment, Mia felt a profound sense of healing, not just for herself, but for everyone who had dared to face the truths they had hidden. The wounds were still there, faint scars beneath the surface, but they were no longer open, bleeding. They were beginning to heal, slowly, patiently, beautifully. Morning light spilled into the apartment with a golden warmth that seemed almost symbolic, as if the universe itself was giving everyone a second chance. Mia woke to the soft hum of the city, a distant mix of traffic and birdsong. For the first time in weeks, she felt the weight of dread lift, replaced by cautious optimism. She glanced over at Lily, still curled in a peaceful sleep, and smiled. Today wasn't just another day, it was a new beginning. Lucas was the first to arrive at Mia's apartment for their morning meeting, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. He had stayed up late planning the next steps for the art project they had been putting off, but his eyes lit up with a kind of energy that Mia hadn't seen in a long time. "Good morning," he said, handing her a cup. "Ready to make the future happen?" Mia took the cup, her fingers brushing his, and nodded. "More than ready. Let's not waste another day avoiding what matters." They sat together at the small kitchen table, sketching ideas, making lists, and laughing at the tiny mishaps that occurred when creativity collided with sleep deprivation. Every suggestion, every plan, felt like a reclaiming of time they had lost to fear and hesitation. It wasn't just about the project, it was about reclaiming control over their own lives, about refusing to let old regrets dictate the present. Meanwhile, Emma and Jake had their own conversation across town. They met at the community center where they had volunteered years ago, a place that had been quiet for months. Sitting side by side on a worn bench, they spoke openly about their dreams, about what they had avoided sharing in the past, and about how they could support each other moving forward. "I think we've spent too long holding back," Jake said, voice low but earnest. "We're both capable of so much more if we're honest with ourselves and each other." Emma nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I agree. No more pretending. No more fear. We face it together, whatever comes next." Back at the apartment, Mia watched Lily at the small table, coloring diligently. The girl's concentration was intense, her small tongue peeking out in focus. Mia marveled at her resilience, how she had endured so much upheaval yet maintained a bright, unbroken spirit. She realized that courage wasn't just about confronting difficult truths, it was also about nurturing growth, allowing the next generation to learn from the past without being trapped by it. By midday, the friends gathered again, this time with a clear purpose, to create a plan not just for their careers and personal projects, but for the relationships that had been tested and rebuilt. They spoke about boundaries, about forgiveness, about maintaining honesty even when it was uncomfortable. Each voice was heard, every concern acknowledged, and by the end of the session, there was a sense of shared commitment that went beyond simple friendship. It felt like family. Lily, sensing the change, approached Mia with a small folded note. "Mom," she said softly, handing it to her. Inside were words in uneven, careful handwriting. "Thank you for being brave. I want to be brave too." Tears welled in Mia's eyes as she hugged her daughter tightly. "You already are, sweetheart. Every day." The evening brought a quiet walk along the city streets, the sun dipping low, painting everything in hues of orange and lavender. Mia held Lily's hand, feeling the warmth and trust between them. Lucas joined them, and for the first time, the 3 of them felt like a little unit, moving forward together, strong and unafraid. Later, as they returned home, Mia received a text from Emma, "Dinner tonight? Let's celebrate new beginnings." She smiled, typing back a quick yes. It wasn't just about the meal, it was about marking a moment when old wounds had been acknowledged, when courage had created space for healing, and when the future seemed full of possibility rather than fear. Mia sat by the window later that night, Lily asleep beside her, and reflected on the past months, the secrets, the confrontations, the moments of heartbreak, and the moments of triumph. She realized that the future wasn't something to fear. It was something to create, carefully, thoughtfully, with the courage to face whatever came next. And as the city lights twinkled below, she made a quiet promise to herself: no more running, no more hiding. The past had taught her lessons, yes, but the present and the future were hers to shape. With honesty, with bravery, and with love, anything was possible. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the apartment, casting a warm glow across the living room, where balloons swayed gently in the soft breeze from the open balcony doors. Today wasn't just any day, it was the birthday of the friend they had all missed, the one who had been away too long. The air was thick with anticipation, laughter, and the scent of fresh flowers carefully placed in vases on every available surface. Mia peeked around the corner to see Lily running circles in the living room, a homemade crown of paper flowers perched precariously on her head. She was the picture of joy, her energy infectious, her laughter ringing like chimes in the morning light. Lucas arrived shortly after, carrying a tray of breakfast pastries, and the aroma of fresh croissants and coffee mingled with the soft music playing from a corner speaker. As the doorbell rang, the rest of the friends began to arrive, Emma with a box of carefully wrapped gifts, Jake carrying a hand-decorated cake, and a few more familiar faces who had traveled from near and far. The room was quickly filled with chatter, hugs, and the kind of warmth that only comes when people truly care about one another. But beneath the surface of celebration, tension lingered like a shadow. Old arguments, unspoken feelings, and past misunderstandings hovered just beyond the edges of conversation. Mia noticed it immediately, a subtle stiffness in Emma's movements, a brief hesitation in Lucas's smile, a guarded look in Jake's eyes. The birthday party was meant to be joyous, yet it had become a stage where all those hidden emotions could resurface. As the group gathered around the cake, the birthday friend, Sarah, the one they had all missed, entered. Her eyes widened in surprise, her mouth forming a perfect "oh" as she took in the balloons, the decorations, and the familiar faces she had not seen in years. Tears welled up in her eyes, not just from the beauty of the moment, but from the overwhelming love and thoughtfulness of her friends. I can't believe this," she whispered, voice breaking. "All of you, you remembered." The room erupted in cheers, claps, and laughter. Lily ran forward, pulling Sarah into a tight embrace. "Happy birthday," she shouted, her excitement uncontainable. Yet just as the moment seemed perfect, an unexpected tension sliced through the joy. Emma took a deep breath, stepping forward, her voice steady but trembling. "Sarah, there's something we need to talk about, something we never said." The room went quiet, every pair of eyes locking onto the two friends. Even Lily stopped mid-spin, sensing the shift in energy. Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "What is it?" she asked cautiously. Emma swallowed, glancing at Jake and Lucas for support. "It's about what happened last year, the secrets we all kept. We should have told you, and we didn't. Anne. I think it's time we finally speak the truth." For a tense moment, silence hung like a heavy curtain. Then one by one, the friends shared their confessions, small betrayals, misunderstandings, missed opportunities, and the fears that had kept them from being honest. There were tears, apologies, and even a few raised voices, but each revelation was met with understanding, patience, and a willingness to forgive. Sarah listened, her own tears falling freely now. "I had no idea," she whispered. "But I'm glad you told me, now I understand why things felt off. Mia, standing nearby with Lily on her hip, realized the truth of their message. Courage wasn't about avoiding conflict, it was about facing it, openly and honestly. By sharing their truths, they had not only healed old wounds, but they had also strengthened the bonds that mattered most. Lucas, sensing the right moment, stepped forward with the birthday cake. The candles flickered, casting a soft glow on their faces. "Make a wish," he encouraged, smiling at Sarah. With a deep breath, Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of friendship and love surrounding her. When she blew out the candles, the room erupted in cheers once more, the weight of the past lifted in that single breath. The rest of the day was a celebration not just of a birthday, but of resilience, forgiveness, and the courage to face truths that had been buried too long. Games were played, stories were told, and laughter flowed freely, unburdened by secrets. Lily danced through the room, her crown slightly askew but her smile perfect, reminding everyone that joy could exist even after hardship. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the city, the friends gathered on the balcony. They held hands, sharing a moment of quiet reflection, each feeling grateful for the bravery it had taken to reach this point. Sarah hugged Mia tightly. "Thank you, for everything. For believing in me, for believing in us." Mia smiled, hugging her back. It was never about perfection. It was about honesty, about courage, and about showing up. And today, we all showed up for each other. The birthday party ended not with a dramatic resolution, but with a sense of peace and unity. It wasn't about forgetting the past, it was about facing it, together, and choosing to move forward with love, honesty, and courage. That night, as Lily lay asleep, and the friends departed one by one, Mia looked around the apartment, the balloons, the scattered gifts, the remnants of laughter, and realized that this birthday would indeed be remembered. Not for the cake, or the decorations, or the surprise, but for the truths revealed, the hearts healed, and the courage that had turned a simple celebration into a moment that would resonate forever. And somewhere deep down, she knew, the future might still hold challenges, but now they would face it together, unafraid, and stronger than ever.